Hey guys, welcome back to my kitchen. I am Cody and I'm gonna work on some batch cooking today. So I love to do this every Friday. It just kind of sets our family up for success, and so that's what I am going to work on today. So I am going to make a couple of things for dinners or just different meals that we can have over the weekend, and then I am also going to make a dessert today. So stick with me and we will get started on making some really delicious food. All right, so the first thing that I am going to do is get a chicken roasting. So I am going to use the meat, and then I'm also going to make some bone broth with that today. So before I can actually get my chicken cooking, I am going to make a compound butter, and that is really just a fancy way to say a flavored butter. So I'm just gonna take some softened butter, add it to my bowl, and then I'm gonna add just some salt and pepper and some garlic powder. And then I am going to use that to prepare my chicken. And basically what that's going to do, I'm going to take that butter and just rub it all over the inside of the chicken and all over the outside of the chicken. And that is just going to keep that meat really, really moist and tender, and also gonna crisp up that skin for me, which is really nice when you are making a bone broth. If you add that skin that is crispy to it, oh, it just adds such a good flavor. To get done with that, we'll cover our chicken and stick it in the oven and cook it for, about an hour or so on 400, and then I will take the lid off and cook it for another half hour. So I'm gonna get that started first because that is definitely going to be the thing that takes us the longest today. I'm getting all the heavy lifters out today. So I have my canner and the Instant Pot out, and I am going to make some baked potatoes. So baked potatoes in the Instant Pot, if you've never made them, it's by far the easiest way. It's by far the easiest way to do it. And so, it's like so simple. I am going to wash these potatoes, and then I'm just going to pierce them with a fork. I'm gonna put a cup of cold water in the bottom of my Instant Pot insert here, and then I have this little trivet thing because I don't want those potatoes to actually sit in the water, because then they would boil, and we don't want that. We want them to bake. So I'm gonna pierce them and put them on top of that trivet, and then I'm going to put this back in the Instant Pot and turn it on to high pressure for 16 minutes. And then I am going to let it come to a natural release, and that'll take maybe another 15 minutes. And truth be told, I don't actually know if that's faster than doing it in the oven, but it's easier, so I'm gonna stick with it. So I'm gonna get these potatoes washed and then get these going. Okay, so while my potatoes are baking and my chicken is roasting, I am going to get started on batch cooking some bacon. So we really love to have bacon with our breakfast, but I do not love cleaning up the mess of bacon. I have tried cooking it in the oven, but the problem with cooking it in the oven that I have found for us is that you're not getting one of the key things that I really love to have from bacon, and that is the fat. So I am actually going to show you guys how I cook bacon to render out the fat. So I am going to use this later this week to make some gravy. But for right now, just in a cold pan, I am going to go ahead and put my bacon down. Now normally I would not, if I was going to just cook bacon regularly and not try to render out the fat, I would not put this down in a cold pan, because that's how it sticks. So you don't want that. So, but in this case, I am going to put it down in the cold pan. And I'm going to just kind of lay this out as best as I can in my pan. But for this, honestly, if it overlaps, it's really not that big of a deal. So I have a lot of bacon that I am going to cook today, because anything that we don't get to eat this week, I will stick in the freezer. And reheating bacon from the freezer is real simple. So I'm starting with a cold, my hands are yucky. So I'm starting with a cold pan, and then I am going to turn my heat on, but I'm gonna turn it on pretty medium low, and then I'm going to add water. What? Yeah, I'm gonna boil this bacon. And what that's going to do is it's going to just with a lot more gentle heat. In the end, the water will evaporate and I will be able to have really crispy bacon, but it will also give me the maximum amount of bacon grease at the end. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna let this go, and then I am going to just do some cleanup from everything else that we have been doing. Now that everything kind of major that I have going is in a place where I can't really do anything else with it, I am going to go ahead and prep for the next stuff that I'm going to work on. So I need some grated Parmesan, but I don't have any. But what I do have are these blocks. Now, it would be easier for me to just buy grated Parmesan, but ooh, this smells good. It's just a much better product to do it myself, and quite frankly, it's really not that difficult. So I am going to just kind of cut this up into little chunks, stick it in my Vitamix, and just turn it on about a 4 and let it go just for like 30 seconds, and then I am going to have a super fine grated Parmesan cheese just from a block. There we go. Okay, so I am going to actually cheat. I had some baked potatoes from last week that I had made for a lunch already in my refrigerator, so all of those will just get to go for lunch today, and then I will do a couple things with them later this week too. But for right now, I am going to use just some baked potatoes that I had in my fridge, leftovers. And I am just going to cut these in half, and I'm going to kind of scoop out that middle part. If you're making gnocchi, you don't particularly want the peels in there. I don't actually know what would happen if you had peels in it, but I don't want to find out. So I am just going to get that middle part out. You know what, I'm going to throw these in the microwave for a minute, just to warm them up. I think that actually might make it a little bit easier. So let me get these in the microwave. I don't want them hot, just warm enough so that getting that middle part out will be a little simpler. Okay, these are not hot by any stretch of the imagination, but you don't really want them to be. So I am going to finish just getting the middles out of these. I'm gonna get as close as I can to that peel. I just don't want any of the peeling in there. These outsides definitely don't have to go to waste either. You can rub some olive oil on them and a little bit of salt and roast them up and have some potato skins. These things are delicious. Okay, so I got my potatoes all taken apart, I guess. I didn't get all the peels out, so I guess we're gonna find out what happens. So I don't need to use all of this Parmesan cheese, but I am gonna use some of it. So I'm going to pull some of it out and put it in a bag and stick it in the refrigerator just to have for some other recipes later this week. And then I am going to add my potatoes into my blender with the little Parmesan cheese that I have left. And then I am going to leave about, I'd say about a cup of Parmesan cheese in my blender, and add the rest of my potatoes, which, those potatoes are done. And then I am going to blend this up together. All right, I had to cover my bacon, but I got my potatoes and Parmesan cheese all blended up together, and it looks, it's like super, super sticky, but it smells good, and I think it's gonna make some really tasty gnocchi, however you say it, gnocchi. Isaiah says it's gnocchi, so we're gonna go with that. All right, that's gonna be fun to clean out. All right, so to this, I am going to add a cup of flour, and then I'm gonna add an egg. Okay, added another cup of water to my bacon to get that going, and I am just going to mix this up. Now, I am definitely gonna have to get in here with my hands, but that's all right with me. I totally don't mind. If you've ever made pasta, you know that it can be kind of difficult to knead, but this pasta is really tender, and so I don't wanna overwork it. I just wanna get all of that egg and that flour kind of worked into that potato and Parmesan cheese mixture. Throw some flour down on the table. All right, and then I'm just going to work this all together, kind of get it kneaded into a little bit of a ball that I can split up. So flour doesn't absorb moisture immediately. It actually takes it a couple of minutes. So one of the things that continuing to knead this is going to do is hydrate that flour with the little bit of liquid that was in the potato and in the egg, and it'll start to really come together. Okay, so I am going to split this into 4, and then I am going to roll them out. You're just going to chop it into pieces. So I am just going to, just like that. And then as I cut it into pieces, you can form these into like fun shapes if you want to. I'm not gonna. So this is great because it actually also can help you preserve eggs. If you have like a lot of eggs at this time of year, I know a lot of people do. This is a great way to use up some of those eggs. It's a great way to use up leftover baked potatoes that you have. You can use up leftover mashed potatoes with this as well. You can skip the whole step of having to blend it up. You just add grated Parmesan cheese to mashed potatoes. All right, so I'm going to finish making ropes out of these, and I am going to fill up my tray and then get it in the freezer, and I'm gonna freeze these on the tray just like this. Okay, I have my gnocchi all finished, and I'm going to take this tray and stick it in the freezer just like this, uncovered, and I'm going to let it just completely freeze all the way through. These are going to get just nice little ice chunks of potato pasta. And then when that's done, I'll take them out and put them in a Ziploc bag and store them in the freezer, and that's how they will stay until I am ready to cook them later this week. To cook them, it's really simple. You just stick them in some boiling water and let them cook for about 4 minutes, and then they will be completely cooked through, and then you can put them in a sauce. So that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna have these later this week, and I'm super excited about this meal. My potatoes are done, so I'm gonna take those out of the Instant Pot and just give that insert a quick wash out, because I need to use my Instant Pot to make some bone broth today too. So I am going to pull the potatoes out and lay them out so that they can be cooling, because I want to pretty much just put them right into the refrigerator once they're cooled down. And then we will have baked potatoes for the week for things like just a really quick lunch or a side, or there's a couple other things that we can do with baked potatoes, and I will show you guys that at some point. So I'm just gonna stick them in a dish, honestly, just to cool off. So this is all I'm doing with these potatoes today, is just getting them. So those are done. So since my potatoes are done, that means that I am probably ready to pull my chicken out as well. Okay, let's see here. Ooh, that looks good. Okay, it smells really good too. So it is pretty much done actually cooking. Set that aside. It's pretty much done actually cooking. It will probably need just a little bit longer in the oven to completely get cooked through, but that's okay because I want to brown the top of that. Brown food is good food, so that is going to just make a bone broth just that much better. And so I am going to stick it back in the oven, but this time I upped my temperature from 350 to 400, and that is going to really help me get the top of that nice and golden brown. Okay, so in addition to having our chicken pretty much done, our bacon is pretty much done too. So that water has boiled out, and what we're left with is a lot of bacon grease in there. So I am going to let this finish cooking. That fat has rendered out quite a bit. So we're gonna end up with a lot crispier bacon all the way through, instead of having like those crispy meat parts, but then having like a chewy fat, which is not great. So I'm gonna let this finish browning, and then our bacon will be done. Everything else is finishing up. We're finishing up that bacon right now. You can hear it popping all over the place. We are going to get started on the last thing that I am making, and that is going to be chicken and noodles. So I'm going to start with 2 quarts of chicken bone broth. I'm actually running out of bone broth. I've been using it so much lately And so I'm having to make another batch today, which is fine. And then I am going to turn my heat on, just like a medium, and get that simmering. And in the meantime, I'm gonna add some poultry seasoning. If you have sage, you can add sage to it as well. There's sage in poultry seasoning. But I'm gonna add, a good tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons of that. And then instead of just regular salt, I'm going to use seasoned salt in this. And that's gonna keep me from having to throw in a bunch of additional spices, which I like, skipping that step. So I'm gonna throw in my seasoned salt, and then I'm actually going to cover this. Now, because I'm using homemade bone broth and there is fat from the chicken that had rendered down in that broth, I am not going to add any additional fat. But if I use a store-bought chicken broth, then I always will add some butter to it as well. It gives the recipe a lot of richness that is really necessary to have a really thoroughly enjoyable chicken and noodles. So I am going to get that boiling, and then I'm going to flip my bacon, and then we will be pretty much done with the bacon, I think, and the chicken and noodles will not take too much longer. We have our chicken done, and it looks so good, but it smells even better. And I am going to let this cool. So what I'm going to do with my chicken is, once it's cooled down, I am going to pull all of the meat off of it, and some of it I will throw in to the chicken and noodles, and probably well after they're done cooking, because the chicken's already cooked, so it's just adding some protein to that meal. And then some of it I will stick just in a container and have in the refrigerator, and then we can have some roast chicken on sandwiches, or we can have it in salad, or we can make wraps for lunch with it. And then I will use the bones to make a batch of bone broth and can that later today. So I probably won't show you guys that today. If you guys are curious how I can my chicken stock, then I will happily show you guys that later. But today I think I'm just going to let it cool and take the meat off of it, and then make some bone broth out of it and can it, and then we can start adding a little bit more to our stockpile, because I have been using chicken stock like crazy, which happens a lot in the fall. We are going to get going on that, and my bacon is all done and I have it crumbled up, and so we are going to let that cool and store that away, and then we will have bacon crumbles to go with our baked potatoes, which adds some protein to that meal. So that'll be really, really good. All right, my chicken stock is boiling, and so I am going to add some noodles to it. So I get these from Sam's. It's just egg pasta, just another form of pasta. You can make your own egg noodles if you have a bumper crop of eggs, which I have done. But this one is nice because I just can pull it out of my pantry. These are our favorite egg noodles too, if you're curious. And so I'm just gonna throw a bunch in. All right, I am going to cover that and let that simmer for about 20 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna get started on the dessert that I am going to make to have on hand this week. Okay, so I have all my stuff cooling, my noodles are cooking, and I am going to get started on making my dessert that I would like to just be able to have available this week. So I am going to make brownies. The first thing that I need to do is melt a cup of butter. Normally I would make half of this recipe, but I decided to go ahead and double it this time because I do just want it to last longer throughout the week. So I am going to get that butter melted and start mixing together my dry ingredients. I feel like this bowl might not be big enough, but we're gonna live on the edge today. So I'm gonna start off with 2 cups of sugar and a cup of flour. I'm the only one that has to measure out everything and count it out loud, or you lose count. Okay, so to my flour and sugar, I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of cocoa. Now, I'm gonna measure this one pretty liberally because I really like a good chocolatey brownie. obviously that's where the cocoa comes in. I'm going to do everything that I can to not make a giant mess. And then to that, I am going to add a half a teaspoon of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of salt. I've been using this Redmond real salt that I got from Azure. I gotta say, can't tell the difference. Maybe I just don't have a refined enough palate, I don't know. But for me, it's basically the same. I like that it has minerals in it that you know, aren't getting from other salts, but I guess that's a good enough reason for me to keep using it. But as far as taste goes, I can't tell the difference at all. All right, got that mixed up well enough. I am going to finish melting my butter, and I'm going to spray my baking dish. Okay, so now I'm going to do my wet ingredients while the butter finishes melting. So I need 4 eggs, and to that I am going to add some vanilla. Okay, so I am not going to just dump all of this hot butter in the eggs, because if I do, then it could cook the eggs. So I'm going to do a little bit and heat those eggs up. Mix that in, and then I will add the rest. That just ensures that you don't have little eggy bits, cooked eggy bits in your brownies, and I don't think anybody wants that. So we're done with that. We're just gonna mix our wet and our dry together. All mixed together, I'm just gonna add it to my baking dish, and then I am going to bake it for about half an hour at 350. All right, so I opened up my pot with my chicken and noodles, and I noticed that the noodles are not all the way cooked through yet, and the pot is pretty dry. So I'm actually just going to add a quart of water to that and finish cooking them. The last thing that I am going to add is just a splash of heavy cream. I really like a good creamy chicken and noodles. I used to add cream of chicken soup to it, but it's not my favorite. So just adding a heavy cream in with all of that bone broth is still going to taste really, really good. And so I am going to let that sit and kind of thicken up just a little bit and cook just a little bit longer, and then the chicken and noodles will be done. All right, guys, that's it today. So I ended up with some homemade gnocchi in my freezer and several baked potatoes for a side dish. I have a chicken that I am going to get enough meat off of to go in our chicken and noodles, and then also to just have in our refrigerator. And I have some brownies going. And then in addition to that, I am able to make a batch of homemade bone broth today. So just a couple of hours on a Friday morning, and I was able to get not only dinner for tonight done, but dinner for the next couple days at least as well, and definitely worth my time. So I hope that you guys enjoyed batch cooking with me today, and that is all I have for today. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.